What's up guys, welcome back to the IMAT Success Academy, and today we're going to be analyzing the IMAT 2025 exam. And most importantly, we're going to be discussing what future IMAT 2026 students can learn from it. True thing is, the questions naturally change it from year to year, but you can clearly see a pattern when it comes up to the selection of topics that they ask, and also the difficulty of each subject, and also the depth of understanding that are expected from the examinators. So by studying the IMAT 2025, we can identify these trends and be a lot more prepared for the IMAT 2026. Alright, so with that said, let's just move on. Okay guys, so the idea of this video is to show you that when it comes up to succeeding into the IMAT, there's not big mystery, but there is strategy, okay? These strategies that we're going to be talking about is going to be essential if you really take them into your heart. First of all, we're going to be identifying these trends that we just mentioned, okay? These are going to be really important for you. And also, we're going to be analyzing how much should you be studying and focusing on each subject, okay? And most importantly, what are the most important topics? Other than that, we're going to be suggesting you some strategy that you could apply in your preparation. And once again, we're going to be focusing on these high yield content area. So stick with me until the end if you really want to succeed and have an opportunity to study medicine this year. So for the ones who are taking the IMAT for the first time, clearly not know what is going on or how this test is organized, I'm just going to give you an overview and a very strong recommendation. Please go get the last papers from the IMAT, okay? I mentioned this in our previous video here in the IMAT Success Academy. The mock test simulations, these are one of the big pillars of your preparation. This is a pattern that we can see from the last few years. We have 60 questions and an amount of 100 minutes to answer them. And this is a distribution that we can find so far. So 23 questions of biology, so far the largest area from the exam, 15 questions of chemistry, and 13 questions of math and physics. These 3 or 4 fellas here, they really take the cake. They're one of the most important topics, okay? I know biology is extremely important, but chemistry and physics, if you deny them, especially at the point that we are right now, they might be those little things that will keep you out from succeeding from the IMAT, okay? So you cannot ignore these 2 areas here. Obviously, always good to have a good preparation in logic and reason with 5 questions and reading skills with 4 questions, okay? These are going to be those extra points. If you put a little bit more effort on these, you're going to be really comfortable to get into any university of your choice. Okay guys, so as I was saying, solid inspiration was like the big surprise, because just about this subtopic of biology, we had 7 questions, okay, out of the 11 of biochemistry. So we're talking about glycolysis, Krebs cycle intermediates, ATP, all these things that you see, okay? Oh, glycolysis, Krebs cycle, the respiratory chain, all these things should have been solid in your mind in order to be able to have a good score, okay? So basically it was like 50% of the exam was biochemistry, and the other 50% was like, oh my god, I should have studied more biochemistry. So a good understanding about the mitochondria, the matrix, okay, the inner membrane, the outer membrane, all these were essential. And a lot of people were saying that they were kind of exceeding a little bit the expectation of a high school based knowledge student, okay? So you should have been going a little bit further on the understanding in order to be able to be on the good side of this exam. We also had questions about physiology, okay? So 4 in particular. Guys, we always have questions about physiology in general, okay? It's like the sun is gonna raise up tomorrow. It's gonna have a question about physiology. About now, what type of question will it be? What system will it be focusing on? We don't know. We can have some predictions. We can give you some solid idea based on the previous year, but this is a fact, okay? You got to be prepared in order to face one of these questions. In this particular exam, we had some questions about the respiratory system, okay? Some hormones, bone structures, and also the muscle system, okay? So understanding the contraction and stuff like that, that was heavily in the exam. Cell biology, okay? We had some human tissues, cell organelles and function, cell membrane, and transport process, okay? So if you think about, this is kind of interconnected with biochemistry. So you just sum those 7 with those 5, man, you are trouble if you don't have a solid preparation on those areas. As I was mentioning, physiology, when it comes up to the muscle system, we had 3 questions just about that. Seriously, like the muscle itself, the contraction mechanism, okay, the structure, organization of the muscle, and actin and myosin interconnection. Okay, so those two important proteins that help for the muscle contraction. Understanding those would have given you some extra points and put you in a good position in the exam. Now, it's important to say that many students reported that these questions were way more detailed than what is typically expected from a high school level. Okay, especially some biochemistry pathway that they usually don't see in high school, and things like this can happen. Okay, so if it's hard for you, it's gonna be hard for everyone. Now, the thing is, if you have a good preparation, those questions will still be hard, but you will know the answer, and that is gonna be what's gonna make you stand out from all that crew. So if you're looking to get in a very competitive university here in Italy, this is the way you should be studying. Okay, this is the type of preparation you should be receiving, going a little bit beyond the standard. So, in general lines, biology was a section that showed greatest increase in difficulty and clearly rewards students that actually understood biology process rather than just memorizing. And here at the IMAT Success Academy, we are aware of these trends, we are aware of the way the IMAT is unfolding itself, and our preparation is totally focused for you to be able to stand out and answer these questions that are considered really hard. Alright guys, so let's talk about chemistry. Chemistry was basically a warm hug right after the biology knocked out, okay? Chemistry was balanced and predictable. So if you're aware of the syllabus, if you're doing your mock test, your simulations, you would probably have scored really well in chemistry. We saw topics all around organic chemistry, structure of and bonding, redox, always there, in acids and bases, okay? Like pH, it's always there. So let's take a careful look of the things that we saw in this exam. So we had 3 questions of organic, so identifying some functional groups, the reactions and products. Okay, so whenever you see organic chemistry, usually they're not hard. Okay, they don't go too deep on it. So it's counting carbons, counting hydrogen, and stuff like that. Structure, okay, understanding chemical bonds and molecular geometry. This is always there. Understanding the difference between a chemical bond, and a chemical interaction. These are 2 different things. Okay, so we're talking about van der Waals, we're talking about the hydrogen bonds and stuff like that. Redox, also it's something that appears once in a while. There was 2 questions of it. Okay, so understanding who is going to oxidize, who is going to reduce. This is something that we can see very often in the past exam, and it was also in 2025. And I always say this guys, we're always going to find at least 1 questions of pH. So if I could just predict how the 2026 exam will look like, I can assure you there will be 1 questions of pH. So if you struggle in this area, please go run after any kind of video or source you can find about pH. So we had 2 questions only about this. One about pH calculation and the other one talking specifically about the theory. Some other topics you could see in the exam as well: chemical reaction, okay, identifying different types of products. Stoichiometry, this is something that scares a lot of people. At least there was only 1 question of this. Okay, so the ideal gas and law calculation. This is good because it kind of communicate and talks also with some of the physics questions. Equilibrium, so shift and principle. So what happens if I add this subtract, or if I remove this product? So understanding how a chemical reaction is balanced. There's also 1 question of this. And periodic table. I always say this, guys, go and get a periodic table for yourself. Be used to the elements and the most important ones. Understand how many protons and electrons they have. This is going to save your life. In this case, we had 1 question, but we often see this. It's always there as well. So you could have maybe 2 or 3 questions. I wouldn't be surprised we had 3 questions of periodic table on 2026. So overall, chemistry remained predictable and rewards students who had prepared constantly throughout the whole syllabus. Now let's go check the next subject. Alright guys, so let's talk about mathematics. Mathematics, for me, it's like that mandatory side quest that no one asked for, but you still gotta go through it, right? We had a very balanced distribution of questions as well, and it really rewards students who had like a strong fundamentals. We had 3 questions of algebra, so linear equation, polynomials, and we had 2 questions of inequalities, so trigonometry, square root forms, 1 questions of geometry, and 1 questions of relations, so Cartesian products of sets. Okay, as you can see here, if you count them up, you're gonna have 5, 6, 7, right? So 7 out of 13. So because of this area is combined with physics, you can see that in this edition, we had more questions of math or rather than physics. This can happen and happen very often. My feeling is that they usually alternate. So maybe next year we could see a little bit more questions of physics compared to mathematics. So overall, mathematics was that section that really rewards students who had a solid base and a very efficient way of sorting questions, okay? If that's not your case, you still have time to develop these skills and to higher your chances to be accepted in a medical school here in Italy. Alright guys, so moving on to our last topic of analysis today. After that, we're going to be sharing some thoughts about this exam. Let's talk about physics, okay? A lot of people would say that physics is just basically mathematics section wearing a lab coat, but undeniable, it is a very important section. In this year edition, 2025 actually, we had 2 questions of dynamics. This is usually very common, appears every year. Newton's laws of motion, gravity, acceleration. Having a good understanding about dynamics is always good for every single edition of the IMAT. We had questions about electrodynamics, okay, so resistancy, also the direction of the current. We also had questions about fluid of mechanics, okay. Sometimes we don't see this, but it could show up. Like this last year, we had 1 questions about hydrostatic pressure, a big high hello from Pascal, and 1 questions of kinematic, so uniform rectilinear motion. So the correlation between time, velocity, and distance. This is very common as well. We had only 1 questions, but I wouldn't be surprised to see 2 or even 3 questions of kinematics. So a good understanding, especially from dynamics and kinematics, is like mandatory for physics section. Of course, the other sections are also important. What we could see from the physics section is that they really focus on some core topics that show very regularly in the exam, and it really rewards students who had prepared well enough for the physics syllabus. It is very common from the IMAT to make you get all those theories and concepts and put them into action, okay? So this is what we saw, and this is what you should expect for 2026 as well. All right, guys, so we are in that part where we're going to ask ourselves, what can we learn with the past IMAT 2026? Beside, of course, the fact that the IMAT is waking up every morning now choosing violence. No, seriously. First thing, biology trends in general. We have seen that biology is becoming more and more specific throughout every edition, okay? The difficulty has increased, especially in areas of biocell and biochemistry, and I do not blame them, okay? You guys are gonna enter your first year in medical school, and that will be brutal. So they want to make sure that the students that start their first year of medical school are prepared. So that's that. Biology is getting more challenging, and it's not going to change. Secondly, disciplines like chemistry, physics, and mathematics, they remain pretty predictable, okay? So students who truly master the whole syllabus of each one of these subjects, they can expect to score really well in this 2026 exam. And last but not least, understanding concept is becoming really, really important throughout the whole exam, okay? Not only biology. So memorizing alone is not enough anymore to score well in the exam. And I just want to highlight some biology strategies since this is the topic that have most of the questions in the IMAT, okay? So guys, when preparing for biology, a very careful attention for metabolic pathway, okay? So we're talking about glycolysis, Krebs, the link reactions, all these are really important, and it was heavily present on 2025, and it was also very present in 2024, so we can see a pattern there. We should expect a lot of questions about metabolic in 2026 IMAT, so very careful attention. And when learning these processes, don't only focus on what is going on, but why is it happening and how is it going on. So for example, when studying glycolysis, you know that there's a net gain of 2 NADH being produced, but where is it going? What is it for? And if there's no oxygen, we can go to Krebs cycle. So what happens with that NADH? It will help you to understand, for example, other processes like fermentation. So this deep understanding, it's what the IMAT is expecting from you, and it's what you should be focusing on. And also, don't forget about these strategies here in your preparation for the IMAT. First of all, the high yield focus. So the IMAT still rewards students who are high yield orientated. So focusing on the questions that show the most, that are really important, because if you try to learn every single thing, you're just going to go crazy. And it's undeniable that we still see some topics overpowering others, especially in biology, but that goes for all the other subjects as well. So having a high yield focus will help you a lot. Other than that, mastering your application. So whatever you learn, try to see where can you apply that knowledge, okay, to try to create these bridges that will consolidate your knowledge and will bring more meaning. We only learn the things that we really understand. And along with this, there goes our third tip here for you guys, that is, try to integrate your studies. So for example, inside of biology, so try to bring these bridges between biochemistry and biology, or even from biology with chemistry. You can also do that, because all these are going to create these interconnections in your brain, and it will help you to truly learn and also spot some areas you might not be paying enough attention. And finally, but not least, efficiency. Okay, so when it comes up to mathematics and physics, time is the key. Like, there will be some questions that you will be able to answer quickly, but other questions that will be demanding. And the only way you're able to gain time and be more efficient is by practicing. And if you're preparing for the IMAT 2026, we would love to help you succeed. Here at the IMAT Success Academy, we guide students through the entire preparation process with experienced tutors who know the exam inside out. We provide structured lessons, practice questions, mock tests, and a completely strategy designed just for you to maximize your score on the test day. And if you want to learn more about this, you're going to find a link to our website and Instagram page on the description of this video. We are constantly sharing some IMAT updates, some study tips, and important announcements, so it's very worth for you to take a look. And if you like this analysis and you think it was helpful, don't forget to leave it a like and subscribe to the channel if you're new. Also, don't forget to turn on the notifications so you won't miss any new content about the IMAT preparation. Thank you so much for watching, and I'll be seeing you guys in the next one.